Alright, hello everyone, how are you all doing today? I myself am doing rather well, and kind of having some fun because the madman has actually done it. He has suspended foreign visas for certain immigrant workers. I believe this article does mention that you can apply for an exception, although they aren't highly confident that anybody will be able to be approved through that anyways. So Trump suspends visa allowing hundreds of thousands of foreigners to work in the US. The move is fiercely opposed by business leaders because they can pay all these foreign workers so much less than what these jobs are fully worth. And by doing this, they don't really have to pay anybody so much, and it is kind of obvious why they would want to oppose such an act that will hit their bottom dollar. And usually I am one for the capitalist society. I don't mind supporting them in some ways, but this has been leading to a lot of people going through school and training only to find that the jobs are already taken by foreign workers because, of course, like I've said before, you can pay them a lot less. Washington. President Trump on Monday temporarily suspends new work visas and barred hundreds of thousands of foreigners from seeking employment in the United States as part of a broad effort to limit the entry of immigrants into the country in a sweeping order which will be in place at least until the end of the year. Mr. Trump blocked visas. Do you just hate that they can never just call him President Trump? They always gotta just call him Trump or Mr. Trump. Blocked visas for a wide variety of jobs, including those for computer programmers and other skilled workers who enter the country under the H-1B visa, as well as those for seasonal workers in the hospitality industry, students on work-study summer programs, and AU pairs who arrive under other auspices. And basically, it's just covering any position that is very easy to take advantage of. Of course, we've been kind of letting the a lot of people from Asia come over with their programming skills, and a lot of people here are still studying to do all these stuff too. And where would they be if these jobs aren't left open for them? Although it is kind of an argument to be made that you have to just kind of allow it to happen because this is kind of how capitalism works. You just give the job to whoever's willing to do it, but it's also kind of unfairly weighed because they also don't have many of their company buildings here in America itself. They have them elsewhere, therefore again reducing more jobs here in America itself. The order also restricts the ability of American companies with global operations and international companies with US branches to transfer foreign executives and other employees to the United States for months or years long stints, and it blocks the spouses of foreigners who are employed at companies in the United States. Kind of that chain immigration that kind of happens with that stuff as well. You get a job here, and then your wife comes over, and then her parents come over, things of that nature. So it all links together like that. So if you have to stop the link somewhere, might as well be at the very beginning, right? Officials said the ban on worker visas, combined with extending restrictions on the issuance of new green cards, would keep as many as 525,000 foreign workers out of the country for the rest of the year. And really, it's not the time to kind of be dragging more people into this country, especially when people, quote unquote, say that we're handling the coronavirus very poorly. So I don't see why this is a bad thing, not bringing in more people. It really just benefits America in so many ways. Stephen Miller, the White House aide and architect of Mr. Trump's immigration policy, has pushed for years to limit or eliminate the worker visas, arguing that they harm employment prospects for Americans. And in recent months, Mr. Miller has argued that the economic distress caused by the virus has made it even more important to turn off the spigot. And it's true, now is the time to be focusing on Americans first and putting jobs into their hands, lowering that unemployment as rapidly as we can to make sure that we come back stronger than ever. But the directive, which has been expected for several weeks, is fiercely opposed by business leaders, because of course they would, who says it will block their ability to recruit critically needed workers from countries overseas for jobs that Americans are not willing to do or are not capable of performing. Now, you can create establishments that will train for these things. It's not that hard. I believe that it would benefit in the long run as well if we brought back trade type of schools for these jobs that we aren't capable of performing, as they say. That's just my opinion. Maybe I don't know enough on it. This is a full frontal attack on American innovation and our nation's ability to benefit from attracting talent from around the world. But that's also kind of a problem with this as well. We're taking away talent from these countries that can use it and can use these people to kind of grow their own country as well. And this is probably the worst part of this system, is that not only are we taking jobs away from Americans, but we're taking away the chance for growth in these other nations. Putting up a not welcome sign for engineers, executives, IT experts, doctors, nurses, and other workers won't help our country. Now, I have a problem with the doctors and nurses part of this, because we're not allowing the full amount of students who want to be doctors and nurses into the workforce. We can drastically increase the number of doctors and nurses if we increase that quota that they have every year. And I sure as hell don't give a damn about getting extra executives in here who don't really add anything. They're just there for the title, said Thomas J. Dunahu, the chief executive of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Restrictive changes to our nation's immigration system will push investment and economic activity abroad, slow growth, and reduce job creation. Administration officials said that the president's orders would not affect people outside of the United States who already have a valid visas, or seasonal farm workers whose annual numbers have ranged from a low of about 50,000 to a high of about 250,000 in the past 15 years. There will also be a narrow exception for certain medical workers dealing specifically with coronavirus research, officials said. Now, I would question if that's really fair. We should be stopping just about everything that from these things going in. A lot of people don't even know about this farm work, but I suppose that it is a fair assumption that they would bring in these people. unless these people had a policy already in place that allowed Americans to apply first. And coronavirus research, I don't really give too much a crap about anymore, especially after the riots that have happened across America. The order will ban au pairs who come to the United States to care for children, though officials initially told reporters they would be exempt. Later, two senior administration officials said parents could seek waivers to the ban on a case-by-case basis, with no assurance that they would be approved. So that's what I spoke about earlier in this video. In the order, Mr. Trump describes suspension of the visas as a way to ensure that Americans are first in line for scarce jobs, an assertion that immigration advocates says does not reflect the reality of a dynamic and changing workforce, although that is to say that was before the coronavirus. I believe that a bunch of companies took the chance right now to lay off or fire a bunch of their workers because now they can bring in new blood and have new blood that they can pay considerably less. Under the extraordinary circumstances of the economic contraction resulting from COVID-19 outbreak, certain non-immigrant visa programs authorizing such employment pose an unusual threat to the employment of American workers, President Trump wrote in the order. And this is a point that I would say he would know. He's a business owner who would probably take a part in not rehiring certain people and things of that nature. I suppose that both leads one side to saying that that's a successful business strategy, while the other side saying that's completely heartless. Whatever, though. The effort to restrict entry from foreigners into the United States was at the heart of one of the president's key promises during the 2016 campaign and is certain to play a central role as Mr. Trump seeks to energize his core supporters during re-election campaign this year. While the president pledges to build a big beautiful wall, and it's already started, we've got 300 miles of it set already, to prevent illegal border crossings has attracted more attention. His efforts to slow down the flow of legal immigration has been even more effective and potentially long-lasting. I say not really, because people are always going to want to come to America. In April, the president signed an executive order that suspended for 60 days the issuance of green cards to most foreigners looking to live in the United States. But at the time, Mr. Miller and the president bowed to pressure from the business community to avoid imposing limits on the worker visas, because of course they would. Monday's order extends the green card prohibition in addition to suspending the issuance of many of the worker visas. Immigration restrictions who have had the ear of the Trump administration applauded the announcement. Combined with recent measures, the work visa suspensions will put the thumb on the labor market scale in favor of U.S. workers, said Jessica Vaughn, the policy director at the Center for Immigration Studies, which advocates curbing immigration. Something I truly can get behind, as evidenced by this entire video, really. It's really heartening to see the president stand up to special interests that pull out the stops to lobby for these visa programs, said Ms. Vaughn, who said she had been regularly consulted by the White House aides on the issue. In addition to the temporary suspensions, administration officials said Mr. Trump was directing the government to make permanent changes to a broad array of immigration regulations in order to discourage what they said was an unfair competition for American jobs from foreigners looking to come to the United States. And how? So, a lot of this is definitely pro-American, and not to say it's anti-foreigner, but it still kind of is, isn't it? But that's kind of what the situation has to be. And these people spend all their lives, pay all their taxes, and then they don't even get a chance to continue working on because people come from other countries who are willing to accept lesser pay, and then they just get their jobs taken that way. Among those changes will be new methods of ensuring that high skill visas in the future are awarded to the highest paid workers, and of preventing companies from contracting large numbers of mid level foreign workers to perform accounting, programming, and other technology assisted jobs that Americans might be able to do. What do you mean might be able to do? They can clearly do those jobs. I mean, I know our education's not the best, and very far from it, in fact, but we can certainly train people to do these jobs with very little effort, honestly. Other changes would be aimed at discouraging immigrants from applying for asylum as a way of obtaining a work permit in the United States. It was unclear when those regulatory changes would go into effect. The administration could try to issue emergency rules to expedite such changes rather than go through the normal process, which can take months or even years because the public must be allowed to comment before the final rule is enacted. And they know that they can get the support of the woke left to kind of push back against this. But fast tracking the rulemaking process on foreign workers could invite legal challenges from opponents who say that administration did not follow the rules. Last week, the Supreme Court ruled that Mr. Trump violated the Administrative Procedure Act when he tried to terminate an Obama era program aimed at protecting young immigrants from deportation. But I mean, that's been Trump's MO from the very beginning, is just reversing all the damage Obama did in his tenure. The government could try and fast track the process by not allowing the public to weigh in on the changes before they go into effect, but it is difficult to see the process surviving court review, said Lyndall Melmid, an immigration lawyer and former chief counsel of the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And then a bunch of crap about COVID right here in the middle. Just gotta skip past, and the article continues. Amid the pandemic, the Trump administration has seized on the threat to public health as a pretext to issue a series of policy changes affecting almost every aspect of the immigration system, including asylum and green cards. While many changes have been announced as temporary, they could remain in place indefinitely. Now, that is a bit of a concern because people in times of distress allow government to get away with a lot more, and that's how we got stuck with the Patriot Act. It is just constantly being more of a deterrent as we get further away from the original event that caused us to pass these things. So I can see the argument there, although Trump has been trying to do this beforehand, and I think he was gonna get away with it anyways. But critics say the administration has used the health crisis and the economic meltdown it has caused as pretext to put in place restrictions that further its immigration agenda. While Mr. Trump and his aides said the suspension of visas was in response to the pandemic, the administration has been pursuing the same broad reductions to legal immigration policies for years, including during times when unemployment was at its lowest in decades. In 2017, the president endorsed the RAISE Act, a Republican Senate bill that would cut legal immigration, including business visas, by about 50%. And I suppose they really don't see the correlation right here, that all his policies were helping to lower the unemployment rate, and he was trying to see if another policy like this would also help lower it even farther. Ah, well. In the weeks leading up to the announcement on Monday, a diverse coalition of businesses and research universities had lobbied fiercely, flooded the White House with letters and phone calls in an attempt to limit the scope of the executive order. It's the largest crackdown on work visas that I have seen in my 35 years of practice, said Stephen Yale Lohr, a Cornell law professor. Thousands of business and universities will be hurt by these restrictions. Similarly, individuals will be stuck overseas, unable to help the U.S. economy recover. And we really shouldn't be asking for help for others to help the economy grow. We should be able to do that just by ourselves, just fine. And we should push for us to do it by ourselves even further, especially in these times. But the opponents failed to block the measures which they had argued were counterproductive to economic recovery. And we still haven't seen any sort of negatives from these restrictions. The Trump administration has argued that it wants to create a merit-based immigration system that prioritizes educated immigrants with skills, said Alex Nor. I'm not going to pronounce that last name, so I'll just stop trying right now. The director of immigration studies at the conservative Cato Institute. With the suspension of the H-1B visa program, they have shown once again that they really mean they want fewer immigrants. Of course we want fewer immigrants. We gotta help each other out. There's no real need for us to keep dragging immigrants away, dragging people away from their country of origin, especially when a lot of them aren't integrating all that well. These immigration bans are more red meat and not jobs for the base, said Rebecca Shee from the American Business Immigration Coalition in Chicago. They don't even serve Trump's own business interests. You see? He's not serving his own business interests. So why is that said like if it was a bad thing? He's not serving himself, so that obviously should lead you to believe that he is serving the people. Mr. Trump has used H-2B visas to hire seasonal staff for his resorts to work as cooks and waiters, and he's directly cutting into his own pockets by restricting this stuff. And so obviously if he's not helping himself, he's helping someone else, and that someone else, I believe, is the American people. Overall, I believe this to be a very good move on Trump's part, and especially in this time of job need from the American people. I believe that he is making the right decision and making sure that these big businesses don't try to undercut the workers they had and try to bring in foreigners at the same time. Anyways, that about does it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and leave a like, maybe even subscribe. Otherwise, go ahead and leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you think I did a pretty decent job in this video? If not, let me know about that as well and how I can improve. Otherwise, I'd like to say to you guys to take care.